One reason why you got to trust God in order to straighten the curves. Now I got Dukes of Hazzard stuck in my head where we've been playing around. I'm not singing Waylon Jennings either. One of the reasons why you've got to trust God is because you don't know. You don't know what's around the corner. I was shocked in Mississippi when some people said they don't like to come up to the mountains because they said you can't get anywhere in a hurry because all the roads are curvy. Well, it made me think of Moses and the children of Israel, 40 years journey to go what it would have taken them about 3 weeks to do. Well, this one is about straightening the paths of your life, straightening the curves, if you want to call it that. And it's from Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 7, where it says to trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him. He will make your paths straight, your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. I'm Zach. This is a quest for greatness. And this channel, if you're new, is about defining a relationship with God by looking at the truth, by letting you see my life, my ups and downs in real time, and also looking at dispelling the myths that a lot of us, even as Christians, hold as well. One of the reasons why you've got to trust God is because you don't know. You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know and can't see. That's Job 42 and verse 3. Look, after Job questioned God and said, I deserve essentially to know this and I don't understand. You owe me an answer. After God questioned him a bunch, he didn't answer him funny enough, but after God questioned him, here was one of Job's conclusions in chapter 42 and verse 3. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge, talking about himself? Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me which I did not know. Hebrews 11, that a lot of people call that the chapter of faith or the hallway of faith. And it's a bunch of people who didn't know the outcome, but who just moved by faith and trusted God. And that's the point. You don't know what's coming. You don't know what, Jesus tells us not to worry about what's going to come tomorrow in Matthew chapter 6, because the trouble for today is sufficient for itself. In Deuteronomy 29:29, the secret things belong to God, right? There are things that we just don't understand. We have trouble with that as human beings. There are things we don't know. Romans 11:33 and 34, the depths and riches and wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable are his judgments, how inscrutable his ways. In Job 9 and verse 10, who does great things beyond searching out and marvelous things beyond your numbers. So deposit, I don't know if I've said this in another video, deposit your trust in the Lord. The reason why I use that word is because literally behind that word trust in the Greek is the idea of depositing like you and I would into a bank. We trust a bank, we trust that they're insured, or it's like nailing to something else. You don't nail a board to something that you don't think is going to hold it. So that's the idea of Psalm 115 verses 9 through 11 illustrate that. Psalm 125, 1 and 2, those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, which cannot be moved but abides forever. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people from this time forth and forevermore. Trust God because you just don't know. Secondly, you can't sort of commit. Remember what he says here in verse 6, in all your ways acknowledge him. So I think about sort of committing, I think about mountaineering class. I took my freshman year at ETSU. It was an elective. I thought mountaineering, I had no idea what it was. Come to find out, you learn how to tie a rope into a seat and then climb on top of a 35-foot tower and rappel off of it. Wasn't too bad. There was some kinks to work out and so forth, literally, until the day when they wanted to do Australian rappel. And if you don't know what that is, that's face down, straight down toward the ground, running down the face of a wall, looking at the ground. And in order to do that, you have to have your hands at a certain place, the rope at a certain place, and you've got to trust the guy behind you, our instructor, who tells you to lean out until you are parallel with the ground, looking straight forward with your neck bent up, and don't take a step until he tells you to. You cannot sort of commit to that exercise. And I did and took a step too early, and I bounced off the face of that rappel tower, swung back around it, and they had to lower me instead of me rappelling down. In all seriousness, though, you cannot sort of commit as far as giving your trust to God. God wants everything. 1 Chronicles 28 and verse 9, and you, Solomon, my son, know the God of your father and serve him with a whole heart, with a willing mind. Matthew 6:24, you know this probably. No man can serve two masters. He'll love the one and hate the other, despise the one, cling to the other. You cannot serve God and wealth or God and mammon. 1 Kings 8 and verse 61 says, let your heart therefore be wholly true to the Lord our God, walking in his statutes and keeping his commandments. I wanted to think about Joseph, and I'll give these to you real quickly in list form just to make, because life is curve after curve after curve, and he's telling you only God straightens it out if you commit completely. So listen to this. Joseph is favored by his father. He interprets dreams. The victim of jealousy from his brothers, sold into Egyptian slavery, bought by Potiphar and prospers in his house, falsely accused and imprisoned after that, interprets dreams in prison, has promises to him broken, interprets Pharaoh's dreams, given to be second in command to Pharaoh at 30 and receives an Egyptian name, becomes a very successful leader, is reunited with his brothers who fear his wrath after what they did to him. And after Jacob, his father, dies, his brothers fear that wrath. Here's how Joseph responded. But Joseph said in Genesis 50, verses 19 to 20, do not fear, for I am in the place of God. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. Only God straightens if you fully commit. Finally, you don't define wisdom. You and I don't define wisdom. Verse 7, be not wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord, turn away from evil. Now let me illustrate this a little further. We make a mess out of everything. You make a mess out of everything. Your plans, your smarts, your wisdom. I make a mess out of everything if I'm left to myself. Here's proof of that. Jeremiah 10 and verse 23, I know, O Lord, that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in you. That it is not in man who walks to direct his steps. Proverbs 16:9, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Proverbs 19 and verse 21, many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. And notice what he says there again, be not wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Look, part of that wisdom is running, absolutely running from evil. I don't want to just make a sermon right here in the middle of this, but we as Christians are at fault sometimes for trying to get up as close to what we perceive as a line that is evil and see what we can get away with. And he's talking about turning away from and running from, not flirting with it, not seeing what we can get away with. Fear the master, learn what evil is and run from it. Proverbs 8:13, the fear of the Lord is the hatred of evil, not the flirtation with it, not to see if I can check as few boxes as possible, which box checking is not a part of it anyway. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. Proverbs 16 and verse 6, by steadfast love and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for. By the fear of the Lord, one turns away from evil. If I understand, respect, and fear God, I try to go as far from the things that he hates, the things that hurt him, as much as I can. Job 1 and verse 8, when God challenged Satan with Job's faith, he said, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. You don't define wisdom. You don't get to pick what's right and wrong. And I need to learn to fear God and run as far as we can from evil in order to straighten our paths. All right, real generic question of the video for this one. I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you to leave some sort of comment. Tell me what you picked up from this video that you didn't know before, what you learned from this video, or what you might have added to it. Comment below, please.